Hello everybody and welcome to today's webinar. My name is Brian Anderson and I'm news editor with Demand Gen Report. We truly appreciate everyone taking the time to join us today to learn about how we can be producing better video campaigns. So let's get started. First, we're going to run through a few housekeeping slides here. We want this session to be a conversation starter. We don't want to feel like we're talking at you this whole entire time. So please follow along using the Better Videos hashtag displayed here on LinkedIn and Twitter, as well as reach out to us at the handles seen below. This way we ensure that all your questions are being answered and your areas of interest are being addressed. So feel free to reach out. If you're new to Demand Gen Report, congratulations and welcome. We're really happy to have you here. Just to share a bit more details about us, we've been covering the B2B marketing and sales space since 2007, providing daily news items, analysis, special reports, in-depth research, and a variety more content there. We also just came out of our very successful B2B Marketing Exchange event in Arizona a couple weeks ago, so you'll see us at all the events around the world there. But be sure to sign up for our newsletter and check out our content at demandgenreport.com and take part in all of our other social groups that you see linked here. We're using the On24 platform for today's webinar, so during the presentation you can access all the information you need from the platform toolbar. You will see that you can tweet from directly within the On24 platform here using the Twitter widget on the left-hand side of the screen. We also encourage folks to ask our presenters questions. We don't want this to be us just talking at you. So go ahead and use that Q&A widget at the top right corner of your screen here. So today's presentation is slated to run about 25 to 35 minutes with 10 to 15 minutes for Q&A following the session. You can submit questions at any time. Feel free to start sending them in as you have them. We're also recording today's session, so we'll be sure to share an archive link with you to go back and review if you'd like, or if not, share with your colleagues. Now I am pleased to introduce today's presenter, Kate Bowes. Kate is a video campaign maestro and the senior demand gen manager at Brightcove. She's an expert at using data and creativity in digital marketing to reach and convert target personas over at Brightcove. So we're really happy to have her here today. And with all that intro talk out of the way, I'll pass things over to you, Kate. Go ahead and take it away.
Great, thank you. Hi everyone, my name is Kate. I work on the demand generation team here at Brightcove, and I've been at Brightcove now for about 2.5 years. And over the last 2.5 years, my team and I have produced a lot of video, and a lot of video specific for demand generation and revenue marketing. So I'm really excited to have the discussion with all of you today on how you can better leverage video in your own campaigns. And so one thing that we're all on the line here today for is to learn how to better use video. And so I'm going to assume that you're already using a bit of video in your marketing. And one thing that ties us all together is that although we're already using video, we all feel that we can make video work harder for us. And so we'll dive right into the 5 steps that I used when creating my own campaigns, and I also have the privilege of learning from world-class examples that our customers are doing from a video marketing perspective as well. So you'll see a blend of my own campaigns and my own strategies, and then also how customers of ours are doing this as well. So without a further ado, we'll jump right into it. So the first step is really defining your goal. And what I mean by this is you need to know how video is going to support your larger campaign initiative that you're planning on. And the way to start doing this is by looking at the customer journey that your customer takes within your organization. Usually when people think of video and the customer journey, they think of awareness. And oftentimes they think those really expensive or flagship videos that many organizations create to communicate their company's offerings. And while those are important, we should know by now that video can be used across many different stages, from awareness to engagement and conversion, all the way to retention and using it for advocacy purposes as well. But like all human interaction, it's not so much a pretty circle as it looks like on the screen here, as it is a cluster of interactions that customers have with your brand. So you need to have video set up to support each stage of the journey so that no matter where they are when they interact with your brand, a video is there to engage them and to convert them to the next step. An example that I really like who does a brand awareness video really well is SAS. And so SAS is a software company, and they're really trying to bring the intangibles of software into a humanizing form for their customers. So they created a brand awareness video that they used the Nepal earthquake back in 2015. Their software was used to bring relief and medical supplies to families and communities that needed it. And it was a really compelling brand awareness video that they used on their homepage and that they also distributed throughout social channels and other digital formats to be able to paint the picture of how SAS is more than just a software and it's how it's helping real-world challenges. Another way that video can sometimes completely revitalize a company is Detroit Symphony Orchestra. So Detroit Symphony Orchestra is the fourth oldest orchestra in the U.S., and they found that they wanted to maximize the recordings they had of live shows. And the way they did this was they used a blended distribution strategy. And we'll get into a blended distribution strategy later on in the presentation. But what they did was they used YouTube to build engagement, and they would post about 15 to 20 seconds of the clips. The viewer then had to click through to their website to be able to log in and enter their information to watch the full clips. So while they were using this from an engagement perspective on YouTube and building a community there, they were also driving viewers back to their site to convert them and to watch the full experience of the videos. And this on the screen here is one of our own ABM campaigns here at Brightcove. The umbrella theme is Meet Your Account Manager. So the campaign initiated as a way to humanize the relationship between account managers and our customers. Oftentimes an account manager can have so many accounts that they don't always get to have in-person meetings with their contacts when a customer joins. So as the customer was signing up, they would then receive a Meet Your Account Manager video in their email. But as the campaign evolved, our team realized that we can also use this campaign to attract new departments inside customer accounts. Brightcove is a SaaS company. So like many other SaaS companies on the line today, you oftentimes are not always introduced to other departments that could be using your software. And so anytime that someone researches Brightcove or online video on the web, and they're a customer of Brightcove, we make sure that they see who their account manager is and the best way to get in touch with them. This speeds up their ability to talk with Brightcove directly, and it humanizes our brand initially, right when they first are researching us. Great. So now that we talked about defining your goal and understanding how video can play into different parts of the journey, the second step to take is to align that video to your goal and to your budget. It's to get swept up in the excitement of making videos, but before you start brainstorming for the content you want, you have to actually consider the needs. So at core, your business needs customers to find and to choose your product or service, and then not only stick with it, but to share to the world and become an advocate. To be successful, you'll really need to create videos to match every stage of the journey like we talked about before, and those need to be aligned to your company's goals. So I'll go through the stages of the journey in a little bit more detail, and also talk about the types of videos that you can use at different stages. So awareness is all about getting in front of your customers' eyes, whether for the very first time or to propel your business to top of mind. Awareness videos are best kept short and to target the widest audience. Engagement focuses on viewers who are more likely to identify with your brand or need your product. So whether using longer form videos, creating a series, or embedding click-throughs, similar to the one we just saw with Detroit Symphony Orchestra, the goal is to keep the customer engaged with you and lead them towards a specific action. And that brings you into conversion. So conversion can take the form of making a purchase, downloading an asset, or agreeing to permission-based marketing activities such as subscribing to your blog. So these videos really need to have a call to action on what the viewer should do next. And that brings you into retention. You want your customers to keep coming back, using your product and renewing with their commitments, and videos are a great way to generate excitement about their purchase, any new product updates, and make them curious about what's coming next from your business. Going on to advocacy, you don't have to be the sole ambassador for your product. So advocacy is when your customers are out there, endorsing your products for you. And videos that are testimonial or review-driven really capitalize on the well-established fact that word-of-mouth referrals are more effective at converting than marketing that comes from you. So, jumping in of video and how to really plan them. So pre-production is the holy grail of creating a video campaign. Pre-production usually comes with me working really closely with my creative team at Brightcove and our video production team and outlining these 3 questions with them. So answering the question of what needs to be said in 2 quick sentences helps frame how long the video will need to be and whether the style lends more towards a scripted or an unscripted video. The question of how many videos will need to be created often comes hand in hand with answering questions such as, where do you plan to host this video? This helps determine whether the type of video will work for one channel best or another. Or if you plan on using it across multiple channels, it tells your production team that there will be some post-production editing involved in order to make it more efficient on the channel that you hope to use it on. And also, answering the desired call to action is extremely important for a video KPI. So just like any other interaction with your audience, you want to give them a clear direction of what they should do next. Should they subscribe to your social channel after viewing this video, or should they head to your site to purchase the product? So answering these 3 questions really helps you align best with your creative and production team so that the post-production process can go quicker and smoothly as possible. And this is a sample of what our brainstorming brief for video looks like at Brightcove. So before submitting a project into our production team, I go through this and outline my goals and plans for the video and the larger campaign that it's usually a part of. So as a campaign manager and project stakeholder, this helps me prepare a strategy for the video beforehand so that once the video is prepared, I don't have to resubmit new project requests for different versions. And my production team gets really happy when I tell them everything I need before they start producing. So again, pre-production is really the holy grail of creating that video content. Great. So diving into step number 3 here. So you have an idea now of the stages in the journey you want to target. You have identified the type of video you want to create, the tone of it, where it's going to be hosted. And so the next step in creating your campaign for this video is to think about the video experiences you can create for it. So the typical way that we think of a video is a standard box, also known as the player. It oftentimes looks like this. The video is embedded onto your site usually located within a larger hero banner, maybe on the home page. But there's not much going on around the video that speaks to the context of it or your business. It's kind of just there, and it's surely better than not using video at all, but there is more you can do to that. So using video as part of an overall experience is what drives the best result. And I'll get into the next slides on how to do this. The way of creating a video experience is by adding interactivity to your video or on the landing page around it. So interactivity comes in all shapes and forms, whether calls to action, chapters to help users jump right to the section of the video that matters most to them, or you can use it for a shoppable video and have an add to cart button if you're in e-commerce. And remember, and we'll get into more of the measurements later on in the webinar, but interactivity is just a way to provide greater insights into your audience and what they care about. So if you find that your audience is clicking on chapter 3 in your video and that covers the idea of creating video experiences, that just gives you more intelligence that your audience is looking for more information on how to add interactivity into their video, and they're interested in that more than any other topic. So everything is tied to the marketing engine that you have running, just like any other form of content. Another way to think outside the box is to personalize the video experience for the viewer. And so there are a number of ways you can do this, whether by personalizing the entire landing page experience. For instance, if you had visitors from different industries, you could show them the landing page that's versioned to speak to their industries. Or you can include personalization inside the interactivity of the video itself. So it might be a little hard to see here, but on the screen is Neil. And so this is also part of the Meet Your Account Manager campaign that I discussed earlier with Tara. And so what happens is that when a customer receives this email, they are then cookied through our marketing automation platform, and we use Eloqua here. And when they click to view the video on the landing page and they start viewing the video, their first name appears as a pop-up, and Neil is asking, for instance, in this case it says my name, says, Kate, do you have any questions that you need to ask me? If I were to hit that pop-up, I could then type a question, and that question goes directly to Neil for him to follow up with me. And so it's a really great way of letting your customers and your prospects know that you want to be there for them in a more personalized and humanized way than just showing them a larger video that isn't personalized to them. Step number 4 is the idea of maximizing your distribution. And when you maximize your distribution of your video, what you're really doing is ultimately driving a higher ROI for that video. The more places your video can be seen, the more chances that your audience has to interact with your brand. And we'll dive into a few different ways that you can distribute your video in the next coming slides. So to set the bar, so many people, when they think of distributing video, you immediately think of YouTube. And Forrester said best in their latest edition of the Forrester Wave for online video platforms that YouTube is a distribution channel, but it shouldn't be the heart of your video strategy. And so for many people using YouTube, they see this and they kind of think, well, you know, YouTube is the video platform for communities and for people to find my brand. So if I don't put it on YouTube, where would I put it? So in the next coming slides, I'll dive into the pros and cons of using YouTube as a sole distribution strategy, and then I'll get into what a distribution strategy should look like for using video today. So there are advantages to using a site such as YouTube. For instance, YouTube is a critical part of your video strategy because it's one of the most popular search engines on the web. It's a great way to get your content in front of viewers and to have them find that content. Secondly, because YouTube is owned by Google, YouTube videos are indexed in Google search results. So this can drive audiences to your YouTube content, but ultimately YouTube will get the benefit of the search results. And lastly, there's an existing community already on YouTube looking to watch videos. So having your video on YouTube helps to drive interaction with that existing community that you don't have to go and build. It's already there for you, and it helps to build brand awareness with your audience. But with those upsides, there are some downsides for brands using YouTube solely as their video marketing strategy, and I'll dive into those really briefly. So in order for your own site to gain the reward of the high SEO that video offers, those videos have to be embedded on your own site. So if all of your videos are only on YouTube or sometimes Vimeo, the SEO lift goes to those sites, and your property for your domain doesn't get the valuable SEO lift that your videos can offer by having them embedded on your site. Lack of story context. So I kind of talked about this with the experiences. You don't have other videos or content on your brand around it sometimes. There can be other recommended videos that aren't particular to your brand, distracting your viewers from watching your content. And so that really is a distraction, and it pulls away from the relationship that you're meant to be building with your audience in that instance. So I'll put these out. Great. So lack of branding is a big one as well. And I see a lot of sales inquiries that we get at Brightcove is around this idea of not being able to brand the video player from YouTube when they do decide to embed it on their site. So using their video player is building the YouTube brand. It's not building yours. And you're also limited in that, again, experience that you're providing with your viewers by losing the opportunity to show your brand and show off all of the hard work you've done to make yourself a strong brand. Another big one, especially for B2B companies, is around denied firewall access. And so what I mean by this is firewalls block sites such as YouTube. And so when you're sending a video to a target account of yours and you're using YouTube to host it, chances are that that contact that you're trying to reach inside that account isn't able to view that YouTube video because their company has banned it. In some countries, especially if you're selling into China or sometimes for internal communications purposes, China blocks access to YouTube altogether. So if you're a global brand and you're selling into global companies, that is something you really want to strongly consider and think about, because ultimately you're limiting yourself from being able to get that video in front of your buyer. This last one is around the idea of vanity metrics. And what I mean by this is the next step in the campaign planning process is about measuring your video. And so YouTube has strong analytics, and it tells you a lot about how a video is performing, but only relative to how it's performing on that channel. So if your video is being hosted elsewhere, it's hard to really tie that in a portfolio view and be able to tie it together from a video campaign perspective. And I'll dive more into that shortly. So introducing what I mentioned earlier around blended distribution. And so many companies, they create great video. They put it on YouTube and they think they're done. And what I'm saying here is to, yes, please put it on YouTube. As we discussed, there are some ups to it, but you don't want to let your video go to, say, die there. Some people put it up and never check in on it. If they edit it, they lose their metrics, so they're scared to edit it. So what I mean by blended distribution is that you should have your video also live, of course, on your website, and also on Facebook, on Twitter, on LinkedIn. Instagram is a good social platform as well that is really important to a lot of brands on the line today, I'm sure. And so I'm going to dive into a campaign that we did here at Brightcove to kind of give you an idea of blended distribution in practice. But before I do, a lot of questions, again, talking about social video and using video on social is how to design your video creative to be compelling on social media. And so with more and more video being consumed in mobile environments or in open offices, not everyone is going to be watching your video with audio. And so you'll want to ensure that they can still consume this content by creating a subtitles-like experience. So either using transcripts or copy highlighting key ideas in the video and using a bulleted list is a good way, because you have to remember that they are probably watching that video on silent. Also, as social channels realize the draw of social video, and more people are producing video for social, you really need to make your video stand out. And so don't just rely on the power of using video today. You really need to make the first few seconds count by using compelling graphics or perhaps a thought-provoking question. And you want to do this all visually. And so if you're creating a thumbnail, you'll want to make the thumbnail engaging to click. Another big thing is social sites allow customers to disable autoplay. So you can help to increase your click chances by surrounding your video with compelling copy. So before resorting to easy clickbait, you do want to remember that your copy will impact your brand perception. So before you go too clickbait heavy, really you want to provide something of a good offer to get viewers to watch it and not just have some clickbait copy hanging around. So have it as part of your overall strategy. So, like I mentioned, I'm going to jump into a campaign that we did here at Brightcove, and this was a larger campaign that had a big webinar tied to it. And we partnered with our partner, Wipster, to put this webinar on, and it's a really good example of using the blended distribution approach. We did social video, and we did 2 different types of video that was used on social. And it wasn't a long video. It was about 10 to 15 second teasers, and the full video was living on the landing page. And we'll show that in a little bit. Using video on social to promote this webinar increased our post engagements by over 100% when comparing it to posts that we didn't use video for when promoting webinars. And on the left-hand side here, you can see Laurent, and this is on LinkedIn. Laurent created this video himself. It was user-generated, and he took a quick 15-second video letting his followers know that he will be presenting on this webinar and how they can sign up for it. So very quick, he got to the fact of what the video was meant to tell them and also leaving them with a call to action of how to convert them. On the right-hand side, this was a sponsored post that we put on Facebook, and instead of using Laurent and user-generated content, on Facebook we went the production route. And so we had our production team just create a quick teaser reel of what the webinar would cover and have it be a little bit more high production on Facebook. And so what this did was whenever someone clicked through and they went to the landing page, they would then be able to see the full teaser video, which also included the larger Wipster team and Brightcove team talking about what they will be discussing in the upcoming webinar. We also have video thumbnails and email. And by using video and email for webinars, it increases our clicks by 320%, which is really, really big. We also noticed a big forwarding metrics happening. So what that means is that as people were receiving these emails of their own, they were also engaging their colleagues and forwarding them to their colleagues to have them register for the webinar. So that's something we don't always see with webinars especially. We see it sometimes, but with this one too, we think it really had to do with the video catching their eye. And they also could have been sharing the idea of using video to promote a webinar with their colleagues. So it went a long way, especially for the audience we were targeting. and the landing page experience that we had. So this overall, really driving video as the promotional engine increased our lead conversion for this webinar by 400%. And we used a really engaging thumbnail on the landing page. This is Rollo at Whipster, and he's very friendly and waving hi, and just makes you want to click and hear more and see what's going to be happening on this webinar. So overall, we saw really great results. It really drove the ROI of the assets we did for the webinar and of what our production team did for the overall larger promo video that you see on the landing page by promoting it in different channels. Using it just increased engagement across our channel mix, and so it's something that we always strive to do at Brightcove, and I'm happy to talk more about how we were able to, measure this next. Zero is an example that I want to share with you guys because they also have a really strong social distribution plan in place. And so the one example I'm going to talk about is their One More Day campaign. And so Xero is an accounting software company, and they're headquartered in New Zealand. They were relatively newcomers to an existing market, and so their social video strategy was a really important element for them to reach new audiences and transform those audiences into customers. So Xero launched this One More Day campaign, and they published videos to social sites such as Twitter, with links back to the landing page on Xero's own site. When they published the videos, let's say to Twitter, it was a quick teaser video asking the audience about what they would do with one more day. They were then offered to go back to the Xero site to fill out the answer and to engage in the video and write in what I would do with one more day. And so when someone replied and answered the video on the site, they would then see a curated list of what other people were saying, and it really built that community, and this is all happening on their site, and so they were really keeping their audiences engaged and starting to build more of a community group. And what happened with this is that after this campaign, they then saw their social base lift up to 1 million subscribers, and they saw a 150% increase in their average video viewing time compared to videos that they had launched before this. So really impressive campaign on their part, and really well done from a blended distribution strategy. So again, having that video on your site, but also pushing it out to different channels. And wherever that's living on different channels, having it always come back to your site, especially where it makes sense to for a conversion point of view, and having them convert on your site. There are also impressive business stats to be said about using video on social. So for instance, this is a research report that Brightcove worked on, I believe it was last year, and what we found was that 45% of social media users watch branded videos. And then of that 45%, 53% of them went on to make a purchase after viewing a video on social. And so while many companies and bosses may think that social video is only for awareness, there's actually ways to tie it into larger business revenue happening, and we'll get into the measurement aspect next because it's extremely important in order to start scaling your video strategy to know how it's impacting your bottom line. Great. And so if you take one thing away from this webinar, especially for when after your video and your campaign is launched, it is to measure your video. And what I mean by this is not just measuring the typical and standard way that people think of when measuring a video's performance. For instance, looking at the number of views the video received, and you're starting to benchmark whether it's performing well or not performing so well. But there's a better way of measuring this. So instead of, telling your boss that the video generated 250 views in the first hour, you could say that 7 prospects in your late stage pipeline of target accounts watched 100% of the video you sent them, or that 3 people who bought your products recently watched the new video on the product release. And so all of this is possible today when you connect video data with a marketing automation or a CRM system. And so when you know who is watching what video and for how long, it allows you to personalize their experiences with your brand. So based on what video they watched, you can automate a nurture email that encourages them to progress through the buyer's journey. If a product video is watched 100%, you can immediately route that contact to sales to follow up with. So when you tie video to your larger marketing tech stack, you're also tying it to leads, to pipeline, to sales, and to ultimately retention. And you're ultimately tying that video, again, to business revenue. In addition to being able to measure who's watching and having it tie into your larger marketing engine that you have running, there are also additional KPIs that you want to use to measure video. Things such as increased site traffic or perhaps assisted conversions, so that social viewer who watched the video and then went on to buy the product. Known video views, so if your count of known video viewers is going up, that should be telling you that more people that you have in your database are watching your viewers and they're being cookied more, or they're watching your videos. And then, of course, pipeline development and revenue attribution. So we worked with the Aberdeen group last year, and we saw some really impressive results from research that we did with them among companies using video. So what we saw is that 50% of companies using video see an increase of marketing contribution to pipeline. 4.3% saw a reduction in their average sales cycle. So video was helping to shorten the sales cycle, which can sometimes be long in a B2B SaaS company. 34% had higher website conversions, and 52% had an increase in confidence among their consumers when using e-commerce video. So really impressive results, and we're only starting to really, break into what video is capable of doing, both from an external marketing point of view and also for internal communications within organizations. So really excited to keep my eye on these stats as the years progress. So that covers the 5 steps, and so we'll go through them quickly now in review. So step 1 was all about defining your goal, understanding where in the customer journey you are creating video for and what the goal of it is, and then aligning the video type to that goal. So making sure that the type of video you want to create will ultimately, get to the end goal. Creating the video experience, so not just thinking about what the video will look like and, what the script looks like, but also what's going on with the experience around the video. If it's living on a landing page, are you also going to offer a space for them to download a white paper that correlates with what the video is talking about? Maximizing the distribution, so all about increasing that marketing ROI from that video campaign and getting it out there for larger audiences to see. And then my favorite one is number 5 on measuring it and really looking at who's viewing your videos and not just looking at vanity metrics of how many views it's got. While that's very important and it's great to measure that, you also have other capabilities at your fingertips to tie video data to your larger marketing engine. And so with that, I will have Ryan come back in for our Q&A, which I'm excited to answer.
Great. Thank you for that awesome presentation, Kate, going through everything from defining your goals for video content, aligning videos to those goals, handling production phases, creating awesome video experiences and maximizing that distribution. Last but not least, measurement. It's a lot of important stuff and a lot of great takeaways there. Folks, be sure to share questions via the Q&A widget. We covered a lot of stuff, so now's the time to get them answered. So let's jump into these questions here. The first one I have is from Emily. Emily asks, Kate, should I post the same video to my social channels, or is there a way to, optimize that distribution from a channel perspective?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And what I recommend is really during that, we talked a little bit about pre-production planning. And really during that pre-production planning, when you're outlining the channels that you want to share the video on, that will let your production team know that if you're going to be sharing it on Twitter, that video needs to be really, really short, really like 10 seconds max. But if you're using that video on Facebook or posting it to YouTube, Facebook and YouTube, the videos can be longer. And so we actually see up to about 10 minutes of videos being retained on Facebook at a time. So especially YouTube, people go there to really gather information. But sites such as Twitter is really, really short. LinkedIn, it's a mix. Definitely keep it to the 1 minute mark at most is what we say for best practices.
Great, thanks for that. The next question we have is from Dan. Dan asks, Kate, what sort of video experiences, such as like the quizzes, the lead forms, the surveys, etc., that you shared during the presentation, what types of experiences are you seeing be the most effective at different stages of the funnel? So like versus top of funnel sort of engagement versus late stage nurturing, that sort of thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. So we see for especially the e-commerce companies a lot of shoppable video. So really incentivizing people to take that final step and to not only buy, but also help to increase their average order size in their cart. So using shoppable videos that way. Surveys and polls, so using surveys inside your video is a great way. Early stage funnel to gather information maybe about new contacts that recently responded to a marketing activity and you don't have too much information on them yet. Branching is a good way of also identifying what your user is interested in. So branching is something where if you have a lot of different buyers inside an organization, and you're trying to figure out, what they're really interested in out of your product, because they could be a blend. Branching allows them to click the experience in the video they want to see. So Black Mirror, for instance, recently did this with the Netflix show. So if you clicked on one option, you would see a different ending, but if you went back and choose the different adventure, you would see a different ending. Very similar. I see that happening a lot with the B2B space especially. So yeah, that's really the main ones I'm seeing today.
That's an interesting point about the different ways that B2B organizations are leveraging these types of experiences as well. It's a good segue into this next question from Megan. Megan asks, what types of videos and how these types of videos that consumer businesses are using? You're seeing retailers starting to leverage video more. You're seeing a lot of consumer-facing brands doing unique things with video. Are you seeing any that have potential use cases, opportunities from a B2B perspective?
Yeah, so I think that the B2B segment, let's say, is starting to speak more in their video storytelling, speak more like a B2C brand, especially for the B2B companies. So, you're a business selling into a business whose ultimately end user, is a customer of the business you're trying to sell into as a consumer. So you're really going to start posing questions more in the consumer's eyes to get in front of that business to break into, rather than, talking to it like just what your business has to offer. And so what I mean by that is user-generated content in B2B has been a big one. We probably have all seen it on LinkedIn. And so a lot of employees are starting to create their own user-generated videos, post them on LinkedIn, and build authentic relationships that way. And so that's a really easy way for B2Bs to scale a video strategy when they don't have, a massive budget like a B2C brand sometimes. And then also the B2B video campaigns that have been going on have only been getting, I think, funnier and, more engaging. They have more spice to them than when people used to think of B2B product demo videos. They tend to be more straightforward, but now they're starting to evolve into the storytelling, humanizing video relationship. And a good example of that would be that SaaS example I touched on earlier. So they're a B2B, and also B2C company, and sometimes they can be thought of as, software and can be dry, and so they just really wanted to bring some life to it. And so definitely seeing more life come into B2B videos than previously.
Yeah, I agree. I think video content in and of itself is a great opportunity for B2B organizations to move away from the boring mantra that tends to be associated with B2B brands, and you're starting to see it like the example you shared with SaaS. You're seeing a lot more interesting ways to tell a brand story without boring people to death about the technical, often not sexy stuff. So I agree with you there. Unfortunately, that's all the time we've got for today, folks. There's been a lot of great discussion on social as well, and we appreciate that. But any unanswered questions that we received through the Q&A widget will be shared with Kate and her team, and they'll be sure to follow up with you to make sure your questions get answered. So keep an eye out for that. I want to thank Kate again for such a great presentation, and I want to thank everybody for joining us today. Again, keep the conversation going at the Better Videos hashtag, and share your experience incorporating video into your go-to-market efforts. Conversation is one of the key paths to learning, so the more conversation, the better. You also see a link on this slide here. Feel free to jot it down so you can have access to the on-demand recording of this session, or if you don't have a pen nearby, be sure to just, we'll be sharing it via email as well. So just keep an eye out in your inbox, and you'll be sure to get the archive link to this recording. So thanks again for everyone joining us today, and good luck with your video campaigns. Look forward to watching all those new videos that hopefully come out of this. So have a great rest of the day.